Today we're going to talk about LED lights versus flash, and a big part of that is going to be a particular softbox as well. And the units that I'm going to be speaking about, I'm going to be doing full reviews on them later. This is mostly going over the difference between flash and LEDs, and these are the units that I'm using when we're talking about this, so you have something relative to go by. This is a Godox unit. This is an LED. This particular one is bicolor, and it's what I did most of the tests with LED. And I'll tell you a little pros and cons about that. The other unit I'll be speaking about, or will be using in the testing, is this. This has FlashPoin, but it's also a Godox unit. This is an AD300 flash. It's a 300 watt seconds, and it runs on batteries. And there's the head on that one. Won't go into the details because I will be reviewing this unit in full. Today we're really talking about LEDs versus flash, and these two units have a proprietary mount. It's a small mount. They both have the same proprietary mount, which is why I'm fond of them, and they use this particular softbox. And there is the size. You can see it's considerably smaller than your average Bowens type mount. And there is the name of this one. It is a 25.5 inch. They say it's a deep parabolic reflector. I like them because, I mean, holding it here, it looks big, but it's not a particularly big softbox. It's also by a company called Glow. If I can get it there. Glow. It kind of uses that same kind of umbrella type mechanism to put it up. So that's like great. And then when you go to take it down, if I don't punch myself in the face with it, it makes for a nice little unit. So that's that. That's the unit itself. But the unit actually comes with a lot of things, and that's what we're going to be really looking at. So view this as a comparison of LED and flash and that particular review of that softbox. Now, like any softbox, it has a front diffuser, which I didn't have on it, so you could see the inside. So that's the front diffuser. It also has an internal diffuser. You don't always have to use this. In fact, you can use a combination of them, and that's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at the differences between there. So that is the internal diffuser. Throw that back there. And then also, really has a lot of stuff with it. It has these little guys, which are internal reflectors. So that would be faced towards the light, more towards the back of the box. The light would reflect against it and then go hit the box and come out. So we have a white, we have a zebra. If it translates there, it's hard to tell. And then we also have another one. And this particular one is a silver and a gold. And if that wasn't enough, it also comes with a egg crate, which I'll take a picture of it. Actually using one to my right. This is a one of those 25.5 inch parabolic units. It does have an egg crate on it, and I'm using just the front diffuser with, of course, LED lights because we're doing video. And all that comes in a nice little bag. So that's the basics of that, of the box itself. Beyond that, there's not much to tell. Most softboxes are the same. The other part of this is we can show my co-host here. This is going to be the target of our tests. I call her Hetty. As you can see, I wanted to show her against me because I wanted you to see the difference in her plastic flesh tone, which is quite lovely and warm, versus my more pasty appearance. So maybe she's not natural, but you'll get the hint, and I wanted you to see the comparison because as you look at these pictures, you can kind of put that into a frame of reference. And so we'll put her to the side. That's pretty much all there has to say about the beginnings of the test. What I'm going to do now is go to the camera and start showing you pictures. Okay, as you can, I explained, we're looking at LEDs and flash. And we're using Hetty here as our model. I am inside of Capture One, which is the software I use to process my images. The one I prefer. You could do this anywhere, I suppose. For those unfamiliar, down here you can see my camera settings. And occasionally I might have some minor corrections here, because one of the things I'll point out, and let me go ahead and zoom in here so we can get her face, because any minor corrections in the lighting really affects what her face color looks like, the tone. She's a little worse for wear. Got some damage here or there. And just to give an example of that, I'm going to go in here, exposure. Exposure is at 0. And if I make it a little darker, you can see how it's making it darker, but it almost makes that tone look different. And here, if I raise it up by 1/3 of a stop, it looks fairly different too. So let's go here and put it back down to 0. Now what I'm going to do is bring up, this is the flash. Now this was unexpected. Flash puts out about 5600 as far as color temperature. This ML60 is a bicolor and it was set for 5500, but you can see it's a much warmer color than the flash is giving. And that is semi-understandable because they're not exactly the same color temperature. They were both, the camera was set to sun, which is basically around 5500. But I can go down here, and just to look at other things, I can throw in looking at, here's 5600 and here's 5700. So of course the first one is 5500. This is flash. This is 5600. So it's still not matching, and even at 57, it's not really a match. So there's definitely, we're getting, you know, a color difference, which I guess is what it is. I wasn't expecting that much. But here, let me throw another thing in the mix. I happen to also have an ML60, which is not bicolor. And I went ahead and did that one. Now, if you look at here, this one definitely warmer. That's the bicolor. This is flash, and this is the ML60, not the bicolor version, just the normal 5500. That and that is now a much better match. In fact, if we maybe pull down the exposure, you know, a quarter, less than a quarter, you can see we can get them close. Still not perfect matches, but close. Had I known that when I was buying, I may not have bought the bicolor. There's still a lot of advantages to bicolor, but we'll look into that in the future. But I want you to be aware of this kind of oddity, because this is one of the first things I found, which I would never have known hadn't I delved a little bit deeper. So let's go back up here and go back to, we're going to look at just the flash. Now I can, just to show you that this isn't unusual, and it's going to be quite common. Again, here is inner diffuser and flash. Now the flash looks like the exposure was a little bit brighter, so I could go over here and pull the exposure down a little bit. You know, it's basically about a third. You can see how the color of her skin really, when that exposure changes, it really makes a pretty big difference. I think different skin colors wouldn't react quite so harshly as hers, but I'd have to experiment with that. So for the sake of understanding differences of the light box itself, now we kind of touched on, okay, there's a difference on the LEDs versus flash. I should probably also mention this was the LED at 100%. I had dialed all the way up. The softbox only had a front diffuser on it, so kind of minimal diffusion, minimal taking that light down, and the flash, which is a 300 watt second flash. Obviously, the speed. This is the LED is at an 80th of a second at f2. On the flash, I'll go over there again. On the flash, we're at 1/25th of a second, which doesn't really matter. With the flash, it's really the flash durations is really what's controlling that. I could put it at 60 and without any extraneous light besides for the flash unit itself, it wouldn't look any different because the flash is so much faster than the shutter speed that I set that it's pretty much the flash determining it. So we're at 1/25th of a second. Like I said, does not really matter. If you don't really understand that, put a note down below and maybe I'll do a thing on it. But again, also set at F2, and I'm at 1/28th plus 3 as far as the output on the flash. So I'm pretty much down at the bottom of what this flash can produce. It'll go down to 1/25th, 1/256th power. So that's like the fastest flash, the least amount of power that you can put out with that flash. And you can see how if I was to put this up, it would just obliterate it. So that's one of the penalties of LEDs, is that you really don't have as much light at your disposal, which for a lot of things, doing product and things like that, it's not really critical because you don't have things moving. But anytime you have things moving, you're going to want more shutter speed, so you're going to want more light so you can get faster shutter speeds. So that's where you can use LEDs for portraiture. Maybe the ones I have are just powerful enough, maybe having a little bit more than the what I have here, which these are ML60s, I believe are a 60 watt LED. So maybe like twice that would be a better starting point, but I can get by for what I do. If you're doing like group photos, now you got to cover a lot more space. So you're really going to be hard pressed to achieve that with LEDs. You can buy really powerful LEDs, but flash is probably the more practical way to go. So now that we've gotten into that and how that LEDs just don't have the power to weight ratio that you get from flash, let's really start to look into this softbox and what happens, and let's, for the sake of argument, just look at the flash side of it. So here again, we will go to flash, and let me center her at 100% there. And so the first one, this is just the outer diffuser. So the softbox has a silver interior, so that's pretty efficient. And then it just has that single outer diffuser. which it doesn't look too bad. I mean, I think it's totally usable that way. So if you need power, like if you're trying to overpower sunshine and you only have a unit like this of just 300 watt seconds, you don't want to stick too much diffuser in front of it, because the more diffusion, the more power you're going to have to put through to get the same f-stops. So here we're looking at the outer by itself, and then over on this side, this is the inner diffuser. I showed you there was two diffusers, the outer and then this inner. I tried to keep these in the same place, but I tripped over my camera stand at one point and lost my centering. So you can see we got these, and this one, our exposures are a little bit different here. Third of a stop. So it's amazing how much of a third of a stop, actually a little less than a third of a stop difference between the two. Actually, it's almost half stop. But there you go. Now you can see that there is not a whole lot of difference between these as far as looking at this image. The big thing would be looking at shadow roll off and how the shadow looks in general. So let's go to the next level, which this is, we are now here adding the front diffuser and the inner diffuser together. And whereas over here we were at 1/28th power, then we had the inner diffuser. We had lowered it down to 256 plus 7, and then now here that we have the inner and the outer, we have to put the power up, so we're at 1/64th. So you can see how those layers of diffusion are causing you to have to turn that flash up, because we have the option here of turning that flash power up. And if we look at it, we can see that maybe the shadow is a little bit more diffuse. There's almost kind of like a double image in the inner one. Like it's the fact that it is being reduced inner, and you get that kind of because you still have some of the silver on the outside of it, that maybe that's creating almost like two light sources, whereas the one with just the outer seems to be better. I mean, it's really subtle to see here, so hopefully you can see it, but there's almost like a little bit of a double image at the top of the shadow, whereas you can see this shadow is very uniform all the way across. So there's your basic diffusion. Now, if you remember, we had a group of reflectors. So let's look at one. This is the white reflector. And notice how I said there was maybe a little bit of a double image here. It's really more pronounced here, so you kind of have the light that's getting around that reflector coming off the silver interior, and then you get that like bounce. So it's almost like there's two light sources going on, so you're almost getting like two shadows. So that's kind of interesting. This would be similar to the lighting you'd get from like a dish that has like an inner reflector that forces it a beauty dish, where basically the light reflects off the reflector and then into the dish itself and then out. So honestly, not huge amounts of difference as far as this image goes, but there is something going on there, and this one's definitely a little bit, funky with the double image. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off the two diffusions, because I want to start looking at the different colors of that inner reflector. So here we've gone from the white to now we have a zebra, and the zebra's got kind of silver and gold going on. I'll be honest, maybe I'm not refined enough. I'm not seeing a huge difference, but we do have that same kind of double image effect going on. I wouldn't expect the shadows to act much different. It's basically the color. Technically, we should be getting some, maybe a little bit of warmth. But let's go on to the next. The next is silver. The silver would give us the most, for lack of a better word, the harshest light. And you can see that, yeah, this one's probably a little bit warmer than that one. And this one in between, yeah, this one's a little bit warmer to me as well. Now, before I forget this, let me also point out, if I go and look in the corner here, you can see that the light really trailed off here. And in order to show you that, let me go back to the regular diffusion. This one here was with the diffusion. And if we, or actually this is the one with the diffusion, you can see that the light really trailed off after we got away from the face. And this isn't very well lit into her little deer horns here. Whereas this one, the light is still getting out. So you're also getting a drop-off effect, which also happens with beauty dishes a lot of times. So that's another factor to keep in mind. So if you want that kind of drop-off in the light, that's another thing to do. And let's go ahead and turn that off and get back to just our internal inserts. And let's use white as the base. And we looked at silver, and now let's throw gold into the mix. So as we look at these, this is white, this is zebra, so this would probably be the most normal, so to speak, and this would probably be the next warmest, then this one, and then the gold would give you the warmest quality of light. So that's kind of the effect of that. And then of course we can do the reflector, and I'm going to do the silver this time. So let me go ahead and turn off the gold, leave the silver up, and this time I'm going to put in, this is the silver reflector, no diffuser, just silver reflector, and then this one over here is the silver reflector with a diffuser in front. And here again you can see that kind of double image in the shadow. Over here you can see that that is reduced with that diffuser up front. As far as the rest, I don't see a huge monstrous difference between them. And then let's also go look at that antler. You can see now that we put that diffuser in front, that light is getting out a little bit further, so it's wrapping around our target a little bit more. So there you can get the advantage of the reflector look, but also not get quite the drop off that you get with just the reflectors without the diffuser. So that's basically that. Now, just so you understand and how things go, I would say, to me, my base point is really looking at the outer diffuser, because I'm pretty happy with the look of that. I don't often think I would figure that I need the inner and outer diffuser together, but maybe. So let's look at other things. This is a reflector. Now you can see it's much more specular light. It's much harsher. Put them there together. Shadows are very sharp. very defined. So for the most part, you don't see too many people using this kind of image. You can see we're getting that light right off to the edge like we expect. So there's that. You know, if you want the most light, a reflector is the way to go. In fact, if you remember when I was talking about the LED, this was the LED at 100%, and we had 1/80th of a second at f2. So we had to put a decent amount of power into it. And to give you a comparison, here is the reflector on the LED without a diffuser, and over here is with the outer diffuser. One, you can see that it's warmer, so the light got a little bit warmer. We might have a little more exposure over here, so maybe we tone the exposure down to make it look the same. But over here, with just a reflector, the light is harsh, but it also, we have a lot more power to deal with, because I turned the power down to 19% to essentially get a similar exposure. It happens to be 1/100th of a second at f2. That was probably just a mistake on my part. I really wanted to get that at the 1/80th of a second, but you can see at an 80th I would have had to turn it down even more. So if you're using just a reflector, you get the advantage of a lot more light. And then just for the sake of seeing it, I played around with some other things, because I had a little Balcar diffuser, which is like a plastic diffusion, and I put that on it, and at the same 100th of a second, you can see we're back to having a little bit warmer light because of it, and we were able to work at 30%. I also had another diffuser, which some people might have, which is like a little nylon sock that you can put over your reflector, and I put that on, and it makes me feel like I may actually like throw it out. Let me see if I can match exposures any. One, it darkened it a lot. I had to put the power up to 83% to power through that nylon sock diffuser in order to have it get a similar exposure to the previous. So in the world of LEDs, you need to really think about that diffusion and what kind of diffusion you put down. So that was kind of it. That was showing. I didn't do anything with the egg crate. That basically just is a different control of light. I might go into that when I talk about the lights themselves. But this, I just wanted to kind of show the quality of light and how, when you're dealing with LEDs versus flash, that you have a different world. And in fact, let me go ahead. I have one more thing you can see. This is, again, flash with the outer diffuser. And if I go down here, I actually have a roundhead flash, also made by Godox. And you can see, it was just the normal flash output. You can see, again, it's harsher. And it also is more specular, as we were used to, like, standard reflectors. So that's kind of why, when you can, it's really nice to have something like a softbox if you do not want that kind of specular look. And just as a comparison, might as well throw that up with the reflector. So you can see here we have the flash inside the softbox with an outer diffuser on it. Here we have the LED with just a reflector on it, and here we have that round head flash, and we're like looking at 3 different color temperatures coming up. Also important to note that whenever you're using a flash, it may be set at 5500 or 5600 or whatever, but everything you put in front of it, even though it's just a diffuser, is going to affect that color temperature. So that's kind of it. That's what I have. I hope you found this interesting. It was certainly interesting to me, dismaying in some ways, and reassuring in others. I think if I was ever mixing my LEDs and my flash, I would try to stick with the ML60s that are not bicolor, because they were a better match to the flash color output. So that's it. Hope you liked it, and I'll see you next time. Okay, as always, I hope you enjoyed that and that you got some information from it. If you did, please like, give me a thumbs up, and if you can, subscribe. As always, I do these tests for myself, but I figure I can share the information that other people might find it informative when they're making their decisions, because not all of us take the time to do the tests that maybe we should to understand the equipment we own. So, see you next time.